One of our biggest misunderstandings about interpersonal relationships may be the belief that good relationships develop naturally. As a result, we often leave relationships to fate. When conflicts arise, we blame incompatible personalities. When distance grows, we console ourselves that fate has run its course. However, deep relationships, the classic book we will study intensively today, will reveal a groundbreaking truth to us. Truly healthy, positive relationships are more about being built and learned than existing naturally. The content of this book is derived from a decades-long flagship course at Stanford Graduate School of Business, which turns abstract relationships into concrete, actionable steps. For example, it introduces the 15% rule to teach us how to safely step out of our comfort zones and deepen communication. It also tells us that small stings, if left unaddressed, will turn into overwhelming agony, while learning to handle them can actually strengthen the relationship. Next, let's explore the core tools and concepts in the book together. You will discover that you always have the opportunity to choose to be someone who can influence and empower others, reclaiming the power to nurture relationships back into your own hands. Earlier, we discussed a groundbreaking idea. Good relationships are not gifts from fate, but like working out or learning a craft, they can be acquired through study and effort. This raises a question. If a relationship is a house we need to build with our own hands, we must first have a clear blueprint before starting construction, right? What kind of relationship do we want to build? What does that ideal destination, our target for improvement, actually look like? Many people might think that's easy. Isn't a good relationship just staying in touch often and chatting over meals without awkwardness? But this book tells us that these are merely the skin of a relationship, far from touching its bones and soul. You may have hundreds of friends on social media. They know what fancy meal you had at a high-end restaurant last week and like your polished photos. But what they don't know is that during that meal, you and your partner were actually discussing life-altering, anxiety-inducing matters, whether to quit your job, whether to have a child. The person who can listen to you share these struggles and vulnerabilities late at night and say, "I understand you," is the answer we are exploring today. Thus, the book offers a deeply touching definition of a deep relationship. In this relationship, you feel that your true self is seen, understood, and appreciated, no pretense or disguise required. It is a state where you feel fully understood and supported. It sounds wonderful, but also abstract, right? Don't worry. The book's greatest strength is breaking down this abstract feeling into 6 tangible, golden standards. In this section, we will use these 6 standards to conduct a comprehensive, in-depth health check on our important relationships. It is recommended that as you listen, you mentally score your relationship with the most important person in your life, perhaps your partner, family member, or closest friend, to see if your relationship's health passes the test. The first health indicator: do you dare to be your true self in this relationship? This may sound simple, but it is actually one of the hardest things to do in our time. Think about it. Don't we all have multiple personas? At work, we have a professional, emotionally stable work persona in front of our parents. We have an obedient, well-behaved child persona. On social media, we have a glamorous social persona. Maintaining these masks and personas drains relationships significantly. A deep relationship, however, is a space where you can reveal your true, even messy self and still feel safe. Of course, this does not mean you have to tell someone everything about yourself. It means that the part of yourself you do share is completely real and sincere, not the version hidden behind smiling vacation photos. Now, ask yourself, in your most important relationship, how much of your true self do you show? 80%? 50%? Or only 20%? Are there thoughts or worries you carefully hide, for fear of the other person's negative judgment? This is the first test. The second health indicator: are both of you willing to reveal your vulnerabilities? If being your true self is the entry level, then revealing vulnerability is the advanced level. What is vulnerability? It is not self-pity, nor is it weakness. On the contrary, the book states that revealing vulnerability requires immense inner strength and courage. It means daring to admit your imperfections. For example, daring to say to a friend, "I messed up a project recently and feel like a failure," instead of always acting invulnerable. Daring to say to your partner, "I'm scared today. I'm not sure if I can do this well," instead of always pretending to be confident. Vulnerability is the only path to building trust. When you dare to show your soft spots to someone, and they choose to hold them gently, true trust begins to take root and grow. Now, ask yourself again, when was the last time you felt vulnerable in front of someone? Are there fears or uncertainties you only dare to bear alone, never telling the person closest to you? And is the other person willing to show their vulnerability to you? The third health indicator: do you dare to believe that the sincere words you speak will not become weapons to hurt you later? This is the cornerstone of a sense of security in a relationship. Imagine this scenario. Today, you confide in your partner that you struggle with deep insecurity due to a childhood experience, and they comfort you at the time. A month later, you argue over something else, and in a fit of anger, they blurt out, "You're so sensitive. You've lacked love since you were a kid. No wonder you're so insecure." How would that make you feel? I think, in that moment, all the doors you open to share and reveal yourself would slam shut completely. A deep relationship must offer this promise: the vulnerability I entrust to you today will never be used to attack me in the future. This is a sacred agreement. Without it, the first two indicators are meaningless. Now, reflect. In your relationship with them, is there such an absolutely safe space? Do you dare to share your deepest fears and fully believe they will protect this secret with all their might, never using it to hurt you someday? The fourth health indicator: can you be honest with each other? To be honest with each other, simply put, means daring to give each other feedback, not just praise, but also the unflattering truth. The book introduces a vivid concept: stings and agony. For example, if the other person makes a joke that makes you slightly uncomfortable, that's a small sting. If they forget something they promised you, that's another sting. How do we usually handle these small things? Most of us think, it's no big deal, don't be so petty, and choose to endure it. But the problem is, these suppressed and ignored stings do not disappear on their own. They are like tiny thorns, piling up more and more in your heart. One day, over a trivial matter, like them forgetting to buy milk again, you suddenly snap, bringing up all past grievances. In essence, those small stings have accumulated into deep, bone-piercing agony. A deep relationship is precisely about daring to speak up gently, but directly when you feel a sting, preventing it from turning into agony. Now, ask yourself honestly, when the other person does something that makes you uncomfortable, do you choose to hold it in or communicate openly? Conversely, when they give you feedback, is your first reaction to defend and refute immediately, or to listen curiously and ask why they feel that way? The fifth health indicator: do you resolve conflicts constructively, or only aim to win the argument? No relationship is smooth sailing forever. Conflicts are inevitable. What truly tests a relationship is not whether you fight, but how you fight. In superficial relationships, conflicts often target the person with the goal of proving, "I'm right and you're wrong." In deep relationships, however, conflicts have only one purpose: to solve the problem. They see conflicts as an opportunity to understand each other's differences more deeply and grow together. They do not bring up past mistakes, let alone attack each other personally. Instead, they lay out the problem and seek a solution together, ultimately making the relationship stronger after weathering the storm. Now, recall your last major disagreement. During that conflict, were you working to solve the problem or fighting to prove you were right? Did you turn the conflict into a step toward deeper understanding, or a weapon to hurt each other? The sixth health indicator: are both of you willing to invest in each other's growth and development? This is the highest and most touching indicator. It means your relationship has transcended the simple addition of me and you to become a true we. You sincerely want the other person to become a better version of themselves and are willing to put in the effort to make that happen. This means you will be their most enthusiastic cheerleader and also their most honest mirror. When they need to be challenged, you will bravely speak the hard truths because you know this is true responsibility to them. Similarly, you can deeply feel that the other person is investing in you in the same way. They care about your dreams, encourage you to become who you want to be, and you are each other's best teammates on the journey of growth. This is a realm of mutual empowerment. Now, think about one final question. In this relationship, have you taken the initiative to help the other person grow, even when it meant saying things they didn't want to hear? Can you feel that the other person is also investing in your long-term growth with sincerity, hoping you become better? All right, that concludes our health check based on the 6 indicators. How healthy is your relationship? You might score full marks in some indicators and fail in others, but that's okay, even perfectly normal. What matters is that through today's checkup, all of us now have a clear blueprint. We know the direction to strive for, and we know what the house we want to build, titled Deep Relationship, should look like. But now that we know the goal, how do we get there? This is the core question we will solve for you in the next section. Okay, the checkup is done. How are you feeling right now? Maybe a little heavy, a little anxious, or even a little disappointed. You might realize that you and your partner haven't truly opened up to each other in a long time, or that you and your closest friend have been avoiding a core conflict. Recognizing the problem is the first step, but the harder part is the second. How do I start making changes? At the thought of proactively deepening a relationship, many people immediately feel alarmed. Will I seem overly sentimental if I say too much? What if the conversation dies and the relationship becomes worse than before? How awkward would that be? Will the other person think I'm strange? We harbor so many such fears and hesitations. They are like an invisible wall, trapping us firmly in the comfort zone of the relationship, unable to move. We all fear handing over our sincerity, only to have the other person accidentally break it. So, is there a way to express our true thoughts without taking too much risk? As it turns out, there is. This book offers a solution that borders on genius, and it's the core tool we'll learn in this section today. But before revealing it, we need to first clarify a very common misunderstanding. When many people hear the term self-disclosure, their first reaction is, "Oh, I know, isn't that the popular thing now, sharing your life? Post more on social media, talk more about yourself with others." Don't get it wrong. The book sharply points out that the so-called oversharing of our era is completely different from the self-disclosure needed to build deep relationships. The photos you share on social media are often carefully selected and polished. It's a form of performance. The stories you boast about with casual acquaintances may just be to liven up the mood. It's a form of socializing. True self-disclosure, however, means taking off your mask and sincerely, selectively sharing your innermost true thoughts and feelings with someone you trust. Its core is not quantity, how much you say, but quality, how genuine what you share is. But the question remains, how to balance this? Share too little, and the relationship stays stuck. Share too much, and you risk scaring the other person. Many of us often miss opportunities because we're too cautious. We keep thinking, I'll wait for them to speak first, wait for them to share their troubles before I share mine. But think about it. If both people in a relationship are waiting for the other to take the first step, what will happen? The result is that both stand still, watching the relationship slowly fade and grow cold. So what on earth should we do? Through decades of teaching experience, the book's author discovered a magical pattern and summarized it into a simple, easy-to-remember rule, the 15% rule. What does this rule do? It's a precise ruler that helps you gauge how far to move forward in every communication. To help you fully understand, let's first imagine 3 concentric circles. The smallest, innermost circle is called the comfort zone. As the name suggests, it's the space where you feel most at ease. Here, everything you say or do is without hesitation and fully reassuring, like chatting about the weather with colleagues or discussing a recent movie with friends. These all fall into the comfort zone. The largest, outermost circle is called the danger zone. The things here are things you would never consider saying or doing, as the risks are too high and could lead to serious negative consequences. For example, if you're having a meal with a colleague you don't know well for the first time and start crying to them about your failed marriage, you're likely stepping into the danger zone. The most critical area is the ring-shaped zone between the comfort zone and danger zone. It's called the learning zone. In this zone, you're not sure how the other person will react, but it's this uncertainty that holds all the potential for the relationship to grow. Does this model seem familiar? Exactly. It's like learning any new skill. The book uses a particularly apt example, learning to ski. Your comfort zone is the beginner slope you've already mastered. Your danger zone is the double black diamond slope only experts there to tackle. And your learning zone is the intermediate slope, harder than the beginner slope, but not as dangerous. Think about it. If you want to improve your skiing skills, can you stay on the beginner slope forever? Of course not. You must summon the courage to challenge the intermediate slope that makes you a little nervous and a little excited. The development of relationships follows the same logic. You must dare to step out of your comfort zone and into the learning zone. But how far into the learning zone should you go? Do you need to jump straight to the edge of the learning zone, right next to the danger zone? Of course not. This is where the 15% rule shows its brilliance. It tells us that you only need to move 15% beyond your comfort level each time. This 15% is not an exact mathematical calculation, but a feeling, a delicate balance of a little challenging, but not terrifying, a little risky, but not overwhelming. It's a small, controllable test. Let's look at an example from the book to see how this rule works in real conversations. Xiao Na and her colleague Xiao Sang are having lunch. Xiao Na is actually upset about a conflict with another colleague that morning and wants to hear Xiao Sang's opinion. If she stays in her comfort zone, what might she say? She might say, "Hey, how was your week?" "It was okay. Same as usual, ups and downs." This conversation is safe, but it will hardly move the relationship forward. If she wants to take a small step forward using the 15% rule, she could say, "Actually, I had a little disagreement with a colleague this morning, and it's been bothering me. It's not a big deal, but I'd like to hear your thoughts. What would you do in this situation?" You see, this is far more specific and genuine than just saying ups and downs. She reveals a little of her personal trouble and emotions, but doesn't pour out all the details. She throws the other person a topic they can easily catch, expressing trust while also giving the other person room to choose. This is a perfect 15% attempt. What would count as the danger zone? It might be if she jumped right in and said, "I got fired from my last job because I fought with someone and now I'm terrified of history repeating itself. What should I do?" For a colleague relationship that's not particularly deep, this might feel too heavy and sudden. The value of the 15% rule lies in the flexible adjustment framework it provides. When you successfully take a 15% step and get a positive response from the other person, your comfort zone quietly expands. Next time, you can take another 15% step based on this new foundation. Relationships are built this way, one 15% step at a time. Okay, Now we know how far to go. The next, more important question is, what exactly should we share? Should we share our opinions and analysis of something? The book makes a crucial distinction between cognition, your thoughts, and emotion, your feelings. Cognition tells others what this is, while emotion tells others how important this is to me. For example, if you and a friend are both unemployed, being unemployed is a fact, a piece of cognitive information. But your feeling might be the world is falling apart. I'm completely ruined, while your friend's feeling might be great. I can finally pursue my dream. You see, for the same event, different emotional reactions reveal what makes you different people. Facts only let others know you, but feelings let others connect with you. Emotions inject color and warmth into a conversation. They can attract and move another person in a way that pure logic and reason never can. I know many people, especially in our culture, find talking about feelings cheesy. We were taught from childhood to be strong, rational, and not emotional. But this book tells us that properly recognizing and expressing our emotions is a core ability for building deep relationships. Often, when we feel a relationship is stuck, it's not because of a logical barrier, but an emotional blockage. So starting today, when communicating with the important people in your life, try practicing the 15% rule. Take a small step beyond your comfort level and try sharing a true thought, or even more powerfully, a true feeling you're having right now. Of course, you might wonder, what if I share, but the other person doesn't engage, or even reacts coldly? How can I encourage the other person to open up to me too? This is exactly what we'll explore in the next section, the art of moving from monologue to dialogue. In the previous section, we learned to use the 15% rule, like cautious explorers, to bravely take the first step toward deeper relationships. We shared a little of our true feelings and revealed a hint of vulnerability. But often, the most frustrating and awkward moments happen right here. You summon up all your courage to take a step forward, only to find the other person frozen in place with no reaction, or even silently stepping back. The air turns stiff, and the conversation comes to an abrupt end. Your heart sinks, and you start regretting, did I say something wrong? Should I not have said that? A relationship is a two-person tango. You can't dance it alone. When you bravely reach out, but get no response, what should you do? Do you have to give up? Of course not. This book tells us that you can't force someone to open up, but you can create conditions that make them willing to open up to you from the bottom of their heart. To do this, we first need to break a well-intentioned but harmful habit that almost everyone has, the habit of always wanting to give advice. Think about it. When a friend comes to you to vent about a terrible colleague at work who took credit for their achievements, what's your first reaction? Do you immediately switch to advisor mode, racking your brain to offer solutions? Oh, you should handle it like this. Let me tell you, you ought to talk to their boss. Why don't you try that method? We always think we're helping, solving problems for them, and wanting to be the hero who turns the tide. But this book points out sharply that in most cases, rushing to give advice is the number one killer that personally ends a deep conversation. Why is that? The book uses the story of Xiao Ben and Xiao Li, close friends, to explain this clearly. Xiao Li went to Xiao Ben to complain about Xiao Di, a colleague who loved taking credit. At that moment, Xiao Li was angry, frustrated, and helpless. What she really needed was probably just someone who would listen and empathize with her anger. But what did Xiao Ben do? He immediately played the role of problem solver, offering several suggestions like, how about talking to the manager? Have you talked to other colleagues about this? What happened next? Xiao Li grew more and more impatient, and finally snapped back at Xiao Ben. Our company isn't like the one you know, you don't understand. You see, a heart-to-heart talk that could have deepened their friendship was almost ruined by a few well-meaning suggestions. The reasons behind this are profound. First, advice instantly switches the conversation from the feelings channel to the logic channel. When someone comes to you to vent, they are first sharing emotions, a form of emotional connection. But once you start giving advice, it's equivalent to saying, "Okay, your feelings don't matter. Let's analyze and solve the problem now." This makes them feel their emotions are being ignored, that you haven't truly heard them. Second, giving advice is an unequal gesture. It inadvertently puts you in a superior position. You're the expert, who is smarter and has more solutions, while they are the helpless person stuck in a mess. This power imbalance makes the other person feel small and powerless, rather than close to you. Most importantly, your advice may not be applicable to their situation at all. All your suggestions are based on your own life experience and values. You are not them, you aren't in their shoes, you don't understand their company's culture, and you certainly don't know the complex history between them and that colleague. The taken for granted advice you offer may have already crossed their mind and been dismissed because it wouldn't work. Your kindness might instead seem naive, or even a bit easy for you to say. The book tells a particularly interesting story. One of the author's colleagues, Xiao Ji, burst into his office and said, "I need your advice, I'm so worried." Xiao Ji had two options, A and B, and rambled on analyzing them for a long time. After listening, the author had already made up his mind that option A was the best, and was about to share his brilliant insight with Xiao Ji. But as Xiao Ji kept talking, he suddenly stood up, slapped his thigh, and said, "Okay, I get it. Obviously I should choose B. Thank you so much, you've been a huge help." Then he left happily, leaving the author in the office, amused and exasperated. You see, many times when people say, "I want your advice," what they really want is not an answer at all, but just a safe, attentive sounding board. They need to voice the chaotic thoughts in their heads, and in the process of speaking, sort out their ideas and find their own answer. And the best help we can offer is precisely to close the mouth that is eager to give advice. So if we don't give advice, what should we do instead? The book offers us a more advanced and powerful choice. Put away your solutions and only bring your naive curiosity. What is naive curiosity? It means you sincerely believe one thing. No matter how well you think you know someone, you can never fully understand their true inner feelings and circumstances. You should be like an alien visiting this planet for the first time, full of sincere, non-judgmental curiosity about their world. With this curiosity, you won't ask conversation-killing, closed-ended questions. What are closed-ended questions? They are questions that can be answered with yes or no, like Xiao Ben's question, "Have you talked to your colleagues about this?" Xiao Li answered no, and the conversation ended. Instead, you should ask open-ended questions that open a door, such as, "How do you feel right now after this happened?" Or "What's really bothering you deep down about this?" The book also specifically reminds us to avoid questions starting with why. Why often sounds like an accusation, forcing the other person to find a rational explanation for their feelings, and this makes them immediately go on the defensive. Of course, an even more powerful form of communication than asking questions exists, and it's the ultimate secret to making the other person feel deeply understood, empathy, or reflecting the other person's feelings. You don't need to do anything else. You just need to be like a mirror, clearly reflecting back the feelings they haven't articulated or haven't even realized themselves. At the beginning of the story, Xiao Ben actually used this technique by accident. When Xiao Li complained about her colleague, Xiao Ben didn't give advice immediately, but said, "That's terrible. You sound really annoyed." Such a simple sentence instantly made Xiao Li feel understood, because Xiao Ben didn't judge whether her anger was right or wrong. He just acknowledged, "I see your anger and I empathize with you."
Anaerobic peak, with the key indicator being the O2 max. If Zone 2 is your fuel efficient mode, then anaerobic peak is your extreme sprint mode. The O2 max, simply put, is the maximum ability of your body to use oxygen. It is recognized by the scientific community as the most powerful and accurate single indicator for predicting lifespan. The higher a person's VO2 max, the more it's like having a high displacement sports car engine. Even if it's not used usually, this strong reserve capacity itself is a solid defense line against all diseases. The training method is short-term, high-intensity force sprints, such as sprinting up a few floors at the fastest speed or riding a stationary bike at full strength for 1 minute. When you can do these things, you'll find that you don't need to give any advice at all. The other person will already feel enormous support and healing in the safe space you've created, and they'll naturally be willing to open up to you even more. Okay, now we've learned how to take the first step and how to guide the other person to walk with us, keeping the conversation flowing. But as the relationship moves forward, new problems will arise. For example, in this relationship, am I always the one giving while they're always taking? Are my needs always being ignored? This touches on the deeper issue of power in relationships, and it's the core topic we'll explore in the next section. From the previous sections, we seem to have mastered the secrets to making a conversation deep and warm. But some of you might still have a bigger confusion. I understand the theory, but I never get a chance to use these skills in my relationship. Because I'm always the one listening while they talk, always the one compromising while they make decisions. This relationship has been unequal from the start. Have you ever felt this way? It's like the two of you are on a seesaw. The other person sits firmly on the ground while you're left hanging high in the air, helpless and powerless. You want to get down to restore balance to the relationship, but find you have no say at all. This situation is very common, and in this section, we'll delve into the most subtle yet core issue in relationships: power and influence. This book tells us that the core of a healthy, long-lasting relationship must include a sense of fairness. This doesn't mean keeping score every day, calculating who gives more and who gets less. It's a long-term overall feeling. Both of you feel your needs and feelings are seen and respected by the other, and you are equal partners, not one person dependent on the other. To help you fully understand how this imbalance occurs and how damaging it can be, the book tells a very real, even painful story. The story of Xiao Mai and Xiao Ya, a married couple. In the first few years of their marriage, Xiao Mai and Xiao Ya were seen by many as a model couple. They each had careers they loved, shared hobbies, and made all major life decisions, like where to buy a house and when to have children, by discussing together. Back then, the scales of their relationship were perfectly balanced. The turning point came after the birth of their second child. To take better care of the family, Xiao Mai quit her beloved job as a salesperson and became a full-time mom. Meanwhile, her husband Xiao Ya, an outstanding software engineer, saw his career flourish. His salary kept increasing, and he got busier and busier. From that moment on, the power balance in their relationship began to tilt severely, almost without them noticing. First came the change in economic status. Xiao Ya became the family's sole breadwinner, and his attitude toward money grew increasingly stingy. Every penny Xiao Mai spent, even if it was just to make life a little easier, had to be reported to Xiao Ya. Second was the loss of her social circle and sense of self-worth. Xiao Ya interacted with other adults at work every day, constantly learning new things and realizing his self-value, while Xiao Mai's life was trapped between diapers, housework, and 2 young children. She missed the intellectual stimulation of work and the feeling of being recognized by society.